Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mic'd Avengers podcast, where we focus on martial arts and action cinema, but definitely delve into much more. My name is Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. I've been a lifelong fan of martial arts movies from Bruce Lee to the Venom Mob, Bruceploitation, and everything in between.
My name's Dragon, aka the Fanatical Dragon on YouTube. I also write the Blu-ray reviews for Eastern Heroes magazine right here in the UK. I'm about 4 decades into this love affair with East Asian cinema, specifically action cinema. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan and the Shaw brothers got me into Hong Kong films, but unlike my buddy Jason, I've seen a whole bunch of Japanese, Indonesian and South Korean action flicks too. So over the coming episodes, every so often, we're going to force feed him something he has not seen.
And I'm Shaun, also known as Food for Thought. It all started for me at the tender age of 14, where I discovered Jackie Chan's Drunken Master. From there, I kind of delved into old school Kung Fu, and that has been my passion for 30 plus years now. I also started delving into all realms of Asian cinema, and I'm very happy to say that these days I have a pretty strong passion for kind of dark Korean thrillers. If you like what you hear and you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a like, share and subscribe. And please enjoy this episode of the Mic'd Avengers.
Welcome one and all Fu believers to the episode 19 of the Mic'd Avengers podcast. I'm the Fanatical Dragon and I'm joined as always by my erstwhile brothers in martial arts and all things East Asian cinema, the wonderful Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. Say hi, Jason.
How's it going, everyone?
And of course, Shaun from Food for Thought. Say hello, Shaun.
Hey, everyone.
And today we are finally stepping into, for the first time, into the work of Sammo Hung with 1978's Warriors 2. Our first Sammo movie. I can't believe it's taken us quite this long to get to him. It's not for the want of trying or from his filmography, but we're starting strong. We're starting with Warriors 2. I'm going to dive in quick and do our synopses and get them out of the way. And then I'm very keen to hear what these two think. So IMDb tells us that a bank cashier discovers a plot to kill the mayor. His attempt to warn the mayor is foiled and he almost gets killed. But a mumbling Shaolin disciple rescues him and takes him to his master to teach him a formidable form of Kung Fu. A little bit misleading. Don't think there's any mention of Shaolin in the movie. But it's a hell of a... It's a bit odd. But it's a hell of a lot better than Google's effort, which tells us San teaches Hua various martial arts techniques that will help him fight against Mo, an evil man who plans to kill the leader of the town, which could be any Kung Fu movie from the 1970s at that point, and doesn't kind of really do much to highlight the significance of this when it comes to Wing Chun. This is kind of one of Sammo's two mighty kind of, what's the best way of putting it, mighty entries into the Kung Fu filmography legacy of movies dedicated to celebrating Wing Chun. Obviously, The Prodigal Son would come a little bit after, I think, after this.
Yep, 81.
Prodigal Son was about. But Warriors 2 was the first, and took him a little while to get the tone right, but we'll maybe kind of get into that as we dive in. This is a movie that I adore. I'll quickly get my own history with it out the way first. Saw this in the early 90s on VHS, thanks to the Made in Hong Kong VHS label, and absolutely adored it then. I think that was kind of one of the first Sammo movies to really hit hard and hit strong. With me, it was kind of one of the earliest ones to become available, and then have had successive versions of it leading up to the glorious versions that you can now get on Blu-ray. I think we did have a Hong Kong Legends DVD release of it, which for a long time was one of the harder Hong Kong Legends DVDs to find.
I'm
not too sure. Yeah, I think it was when they started releasing stuff stateside as well. So I think there was possibly a Hong Kong Legends DVD over in the US as well. But yeah, just an absolute riot of a movie with some incredible choreography. Our main stars, of course, the non-martial arts knowing Beardy, aka Lung Kar-yan, who never kind of lets the fact that he had no formal training get in the way of the fact that he's always magnificent on screen, alongside Sammo Hung himself. We get an incredible villain turn, which we will definitely get to, by Fung Har-kon, and then some supporting roles from Lee Hoi-sang and a few other in between. Lau Kar-wing in there too, briefly.
You mentioned Casanova Wong as well.
Didn't I? I thought I jumped.
No.
Not our first time mentioning Casanova Wong, because he was in Duel to the Death. But yes, Casanova Wong very much in the starring role in this and doing a phenomenal job. Not really doing that much Wing Chun, really. They could not rely on his incredible kicking technique. He's very much a leg man, which is in full effect in this movie. But yeah, he's phenomenal in this film. So yeah, one that I've seen multiple times over the years, and I've always absolutely adored. But I was going to throw it over to you, gentlemen, and tell me when you first encountered it, and what you thought about the rewatch. Let's jump in with Jason first.
Yeah, so there's three movies, this, Prodigal Son, and I think Magnificent Butcher, that I remember watching on DVD in the early 2000s. And for some reason, they all kind of blend to me a little bit, especially Prodigal Son and this. So I was excited to rewatch it. In my mind, I thought Warriors 2, because I didn't watch it over and over like for years, kind of like, when you moved on from the DVDs to the Blu-ray, I haven't seen it in a long time. And when I rewatched it, I was expecting more of that Sammo comedy. So, and I've said before that like Sammo, I think he's a genius. I think he's a brilliant director, amazing choreographer. But for some reason, I'm not always drawn to him as like the leading man type of situation.
Okay.
I get the irony of it. And when I'm watching it, I enjoy it. It's just there's something that didn't pull me to it, And like, so maybe that's why I didn't rewatch it all the time. But what it was is that when I started watching this, I was like, man, I think Prodigal Son might have been more of the comedic one a bit, because this has like the beats, but it does just some of that like and those silliness and those late 70s ones is when it's really over the head, hits you over the head with the comedy. It's just a little too slapstick for me sometimes. Like everyone adores Avenging Warriors of Shaolin with the Venoms, and I love it too, but them trying to get into that Jackie mode, it's just it didn't always get me to the higher tier of Venoms, because they're just so like it's almost like squeezing noses like Three Stooges. They're doing all that stuff in there, like it's just in that 1978 when Jackie was ruling the box office, so it makes sense. But so when I watched it, I was like, wow, this is nice how they have the comedy. It's almost like two movies going at once. And when we get to the end, we'll talk about how it literally is like you have in one room like a serious like 1978 like murder revenge, in the other room this hysterical fight going on, and it really kind of sums up the mix of the movie, how it does that so nicely. It goes back and forth, and so go ahead.
I'm just going to say Sammo maybe more than anyone else had this ability to kind of fluctuate between goofy comedy and then pretty extreme tragedy, like that. There's
brutal stuff sometimes giving you whiplash that it jumps back and forth so fast, because he had a tendency to he did kind of comedic beats, but there's a darkness to his movies, pretty much almost everything that he's directed, that you didn't always find in that era, certainly never in the Yun Clan. I don't think they would ever go, even in their darkest moments, they never really kind of got to the levels of either little bits of gore but certainly in particular the savagery that Sammo would just throw away on a dime. The Yun Clan love violence. They're definitely big on violence, but it never ever crossed that kind of brutality line that Sammo can sometimes go towards. Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of what I'm used to, is that Chang-Chi like brutality. So I kind of liked how this. It felt pretty seamless. I agree with the whiplash, but for the most part, this really went along nicely. It didn't have like too much of a like din 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 like some Benny Hill sound and then a guy's head chopping off. It really like kind of went from one scene to the other, like I said, seamlessly. And so for me, rewatching it now, I really, really like this one. I thought it was really, really good. And I thought it kept getting better and better as it went along. It kind of feels like it has a mixture of different styles in it. It's kind of like, so it has like that amazing training that I love. It has all that. It has the revenge plot, and I don't want to call these, well, we will have to say they are a little bit cookie cutter in this period of Kung Fu movies. Like, there is like kind of like a regimen, you have the murder, you have the revenge plot, you have the training, and it's funny when I often think of like, The Karate Kid's like one of my favorite martial arts movies, like bar none, because that's like an entry point. I think it's just amazing. But coming into that, you wonder how like that director who did Rocky and that, wonder if they went back and kind of watched some of these to get that Mr. Miyagi, because there's a lot of that in this. And it's obviously, 6-7 years before. It's just interesting. I almost want to trace it back. It's like, when was this first like training like this that had this in a movie? I wonder when it first like came in.
I've never kind of dived into the lore of the Karate Kid too much, because it's definitely kind of feels more referential to Hong Kong cinema than it does to Japanese. You didn't often get, because obviously the Karate Kid's kind of focused on Japanese martial arts, on karate, but you never really had a huge amount of training in kind of Japanese action movies or martial arts adjacent movies in the 60s and 70s in the way that Hong Kong did. It kind of became like a real staple in Hong Kong cinema, magnificently so, really, in a kind of way that was really kind of glorious, going back to the Shaw Brothers days and probably a little bit back before then. But it's something that was, to me, always a lot more indicative of Hong Kong cinema. So you're right, they maybe did kind of look back and certainly maybe look at the Jackie Chan movies of the 1970s when they were putting together the Karate Kid, because definitely him doing his crane pose on the top of posts down at the beach does feel very Hong Kong.
100%. And you ask a good question, Jason, and that is, when was the first training sequence? Not like the Shaolin training sequence, but the kind of old teacher classic training sequence. When was the first one of those?
Oh, man.
And I would love to find out. That's a really interesting question, I think.
Yeah,
I'm going through films in my head, and I'm just like, is Warriors 2 one of the first ones?
Yeah, probably not. Because you have all those Chang Che ones with Fu Sheng, and you have all those ones leading up. But we're talking about what always drew me in was that relationship. Mr. Miyagi and Daniel Son was like a friendship, A lot of these have more like a whip you over the head type of thing going on, So, but it still has that vibe. And I kind of hold them to the standard of, yes, you see the crane in Karate Kid and it's a throwback to what he learned. You see him block, when it's nice. When these training scenes don't work as well is when they do all this random training and then they go and they're doing all these flips as nothing to do with what they train with, And I also don't like when the training is they train and the first fight they have mid-training, they beat everyone up. It doesn't, I like to see them fail and do bad at first, and then finally get there. But just wrapping that up, I thought it was great. I loved all the training. I loved how it was a mixture of a comedy, the unreal finale, which we have to talk about. I mean, we're going to dive into. It's just insane, and it's kind of interesting. Casanova Wong is the lead, but as it goes along, you can feel like Sammo trickle to it becomes like Warriors 2. By the end, you have like a dual finale, and then you have like that wood sequence. They kind of both take it lives up to the Warriors 2 mantle or title.
But Sammo's not one of the two warriors in the name. I mean, in the West, we know it as Warriors 2. I think the original title of the movie in sort of translated from the Chinese is Mr. Sang and Cashier Hua. So it's really speaking to Casanova Wong and Beardy's character.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They would say that's okay. Because once you see Sammo just lighting dudes up, you would assume that's what it means. They're both under him.
No, I think he was always very good as a director, raising other people up. So I don't think he ever needed to be the central star. I mean, he there's definitely been instances when he did put himself front and center, but he was very happy to kind of take a bit of a back seat in a whole bunch of movies. So a lot of his best movies, he's not on the main point. So I think, it is weird because you don't get Beardy, spoiler, but if you're not seeing the movie, then why are you listening to this? Go and watch the movie and then come back. Obviously Beardy doesn't make it to the end. He has his demise kind of before that point in a pretty classic example of Sammo brutality, right? And
isn't it weird to call that guy?
Pretty odd.
Isn't it strange to call him Beardy the way he seems and looks in this? It's like so.
He's more mustachy in this. He's less beardy.
Mustachied.
But just his whole demeanor and man, I was so impressed with this. I was so impressed. And Sammo, I got to dive into more. And I did start watching Prodigal Son again. I own it. I'm going to I haven't watched it in so long. And as I went through it, it did have a lot more of the comedic beats. There's like a lot of that Peking opera scenes and the guy talking in the high girl voice and these different moments. It definitely has its serious moments, of course, but it just had a little more of that slapstick that this had and that's not always a problem. It's just not always the type I love the most. I just tend to like a little more serious. But I was just so impressed, and I'm sure we'll go back to the finales and talk about all that. I just, I did want to say one little thing I noticed right now, Dragon, you read that synopsis and it talked about the mayor. I don't know if it's missing a little part. Did you notice the death of the mayor is not in this movie? Like when Lau Kar Wing and then they end up in that outdoor area, the mayor's up against a tree. They cut him a little bit and he falls down a hill. But it's like they just get him out of there, and I was waiting for them to be in some torture room later or something. You never see him again.
They do kind of throw it away because I think emotionally it's not the death that is in any way as impactful as the two other main deaths. So the death of Casanova Wong's mother, principally,
which they kind of use as a real sort of story point where partly that information is kept from him for a while by Sammo to try and keep him safe, but really predominantly the death of the Master, the death of Beardy's character, is that's the real kind of big motivation for them going to go out to kind of smash the villainous gang, and kind of try and take back control. The mayor's kind of almost just an afterthought. I think that's very much linked into the villains plot, like their plan to kind of take control of the town, I guess. But it's not that kind of instrumental, because I think their attempts to try and save him aren't really that wholehearted, because they're foiled at every turn by Dean Sheck. Anytime that they try and get the information to the mayor, they're foiled by Dean Sheck being a slightly less irritating character than Dean Sheck's been in some of other of these type of
I've
movies.
got a lot to say about that. I've got a lot to say about that.
Well, one more thing on that. It's funny. This is a throwback to Born Invincible in our episode. I thought that was the funniest plot, that these guys they're like going to the ends of the earth to kill this guy just because he saw them kill other people. This had a similar plot. I will say, we can get into critiques later, the plot is kind of like, just because he knew of them wanting to do this, they're going to like hunt him down and like they just have to kill this guy. You know what I mean? And his kung fu wasn't even that great. It's just a strange, when you're that ruthless. I guess he could this one is a little more believable because he could upend the whole thing. Of course, maybe if you're taking over the whole town, there's no court.
To a point. I mean, like, the believability in this movie aren't necessarily on the same page, because by the time that we get to the last act, we're in straight computer game territory. We're just doing boss ascension after boss ascension, and kind of rising up to kind of what was absolutely one of my favorite ever Fung Har Kong performances. He's so spectacular in this movie, and everything about how his sections. Yeah, we'll get to it. I'm very curious to let's hear Shaun's origins first, and then we'll roll up our sleeves and dive into it.
Weirdly, I don't really have a history with this film. So like many other films, I've spoken about this probably about 28 times on this podcast so far. The Best of Martial Arts documentary. It actually featured a segment from this film. It featured the training sequence with Beardy when he's getting to catch the leaf. And so when I first saw that, at whatever age I was, I don't even remember, I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. This is, I just remember thinking it was the coolest thing ever. And I bought the film on VHS. I watched it, but weirdly, I don't remember having any reaction to the film. I don't remember liking it or not liking it. But I do remember I owned it on VHS, I owned it on DVD, and obviously I now own it on Blu-ray. But for a long segment of my life when I was into Kung Fu films, Warriors 2 just didn't really pop up as one I would watch frequently. Fast forward a little bit, within the last, I don't know, let's say the last 15 years, I find myself watching it more and more and more and appreciating it more and more and more. This time around, watching it, and I'm happy to say I actually watched it with the original dub, which and it was the original dub, not the redub. It was the classic original dub.
Thank God.
And exactly. And I had an absolute whale of a time. And if you asked me right now, if you put me on the spot right now and said, what's your favorite Kung Fu movie? I'd tell you it's Warriors 2. I liked it that much. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
It's so impeccably made that you could technically throw out the plot of this film. Don't get me wrong, the plot's fine. It's quite good, but it's really mostly about the action. And if you watch the making of documentary or featurette, it feels like it's all about the action. Like it wasn't really much about the plot. But with that said, it's not just a throwaway Kung Fu film. It's not one of those Kung Fu films where you're just like, oh, it's the typical same old shit we've seen a million times. Revenge on the masters, for the master's death, etc., etc. This feels like it's well put together. It is genuinely a who's who of Hong Kong stars. I mean, everyone from Sammo Hung to Li Hoi Sang to Lau Gao Wing to, oh no, I forgot his name. What's the Korean guy? Not Casanova Wong. Tiger
Chan or Jan?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure of his last name either.
He's in a lot of Bruce exploitation, like Blind Fists of Bruce.
He's in Tower of Death as well, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, and Casanova Wong is a cameo in Tower of Death.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah,
in the greenhouse.
Yes,
he's fantastic in it. Just you even get a small cameo in this film from Mang Hoi. Mang Hoi pops up, which you don't expect to see. Just so many people. Yes, and everyone brings their A game to this film. No one in the action department or even in the acting department, everyone's really doing well. I have a little issue with Casanova Wong. He's never been a leading man for me. He's never really had that star power for me. Not in terms of action. In terms of action, he's one of the best kickers. His kicks may not be the most complex in the world, but how they look absolutely beautiful. And yeah, he's never been a big leading man for me. So in this film, I'm kind of like, he's fine. But the story really lifts him up and the action lifts him up. And I just think all in all, it works perfectly. Beardy, one of his best roles, genuinely, I think. He is wonderful in this role. And if you do watch the making of featurette, you will hear just how much punishment Beardy went through to make this film. He had some rough days, let's just say. It's funny, in the documentary, he says, it was so hot and he was sweating so much. And it shows a clip from when he's working on the wooden dummy inside like that kind of wooden hall. I didn't notice when I was watching the film. He is dripping. He is soaking wet in that scene. But yeah, I don't know. Everything about it is great. The whole boss battle thing, you go from one boss to the next towards the end. As you mentioned, I think this is an oddly restrained Dean Sheck, and it really, really works. It's one of my favorite Dean Sheck roles. And by the way, I'm a big Dean Sheck fan. I like Dean Sheck in general. R.I.P. Everything works. Everything works for me. I'm a big fan of Wing Chun. I think it looks beautiful here, especially when Sammo does it. It's just, and Beardy. Yeah, I don't know. It just has everything for me. It's just the ultimate kung fu package. Easy. The runtime is pretty brief. And it is very, very action heavy. And it's got weapons, it's got different styles, and it has one of the best villains ever. Oh, I could keep going on, guys. I could go on all day.
I'm still impressed with you saying your favorite of all time right now.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. I love that.
Well, my original favorite of all time was The Magnificent Butcher, and I can see some kind of similarities between those two in kind of aura. I can feel like that they go hand in hand.
Those three were blending for me.
You did say yes.
That's cool. It's also interesting how when you're talking about I just want to say on the Wing Chun there is how they when I see like actual Wing Chun, if you see it like people in schools doing it, it's strange. They do that variation of the horse stance, and it's kind of weird how they're just like planted. And I like how they altered this because it's strange for if you run up and then plant and they sit there and go. Yeah. It's nice to have that fluidity because when you see Bruce Lee, of course, he studied Muhammad Ali. It's almost in Bruce Lee studied fencing. So he has that in and out dancing on your feet thing. So when you see actual Wing Chun on screen, that planting is a little odd to me looking. And they really kind of circumnavigated that. They they had the movements, but they weren't just sitting there like you would be in front of a dummy where you go, oh, those guys are in a field just like, so I thought that really gave it that movie twist because until I watched that featurette, I was like, yeah, it's saying Wing Chun so much, but I'm not getting that vibe of when I actually watch people Wing Chun spar. They seem kind of not ripping on it by any means, but they just seem stiff to me, really stiff.
Yeah, like rigid, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's kind of like and that's kind of the nature of it. And as you watch that featurette, they talked about how, it's a woman style, and to really get it, some people who trained in that karate and Korean styles have trouble getting that grace of it, getting the grace back into it sometimes. So I loved all that, but I will say when it went to that outdoor Lau Kar Wing scene, it didn't feel Wing Chun at all. Suddenly like just a straight like kung fu movie going on,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of delegation going on. I kind of feel that Lau Kar Wing was given a lot of space to just kind of do his own thing for that sequence. So it's a nice little kind of wee breath of fresh air. Not that the other stuff by any means is gets overplayed, but it does keeps things very fresh. And I love
Why was Lau Kar-wing never a leading man? Why he had all the skill on Earth. He's one of the best on-screen performers. Why did he never get leading roles?
Hard to say. I think maybe slightly overshadowed by his older brother to a certain extent.
I guess,
but
Legendary Weapons is up there.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of like the sort of secret villain in that. He doesn't really kind of come out until the last act, really, and there's that spectacular last battle. I mean, I think he, more so than really anyone else who'd spent quite a lot of time at Shaw's, I don't think he was ever under contract, so he was always doing other bits and pieces outside. And I think he was definitely a pretty key part of Sammo's trope, especially post Shaw's. He was kind of always...
He worked well with Sammo.
Really well, yeah. And I think maybe that the high point for him is probably The Odd Couple. I think that's 100%. When he got the chance to shine the most, because he's sort of dual top bill in that movie, and he's getting to play multiple different parts, and the weapons work that's on display there in The Odd Couple is maybe the best ever in Kung Fu cinema. I think it's maybe the best weapons movie.
I would say yes.
Or certainly the best sword v spear movie. I mean, there's maybe other movies that have explored other weapons more, but the forms that are on display there, and I think he really seemed to gel with Sammo particularly well, and was able to just handle the choreography incredibly gracefully. But he was always quite unassuming. I mean, he's thankfully still with us, and I think he's still fairly active. I know that he was at the retrospective for his brother in Hong Kong a few years ago and spoke at length there. But yeah, an incredible performer, really. I think he's I'm now struggling to try and think of a movie where he is literally the sole leading man, and I'm coming up short.
Is he in... Wait, is it him in Fists and Guts?
No, he's a supporting player in that too. Fists and Guts is really Gordon Liu. Gordon Liu going up against Lo Lei in multiple disguises.
Yes,
but he is definitely there. But it's him and Lee Hoi San are kind of like the two sort of comedic supporting characters in Fists and Guts.
Wow,
and I think he worked on.
Is that the one where Lo Lei's the monk and there's like a sword?
Okay. Yeah, he was like a Tibetan monk, and there's that kind of great underground base at the end that Gordon Liu has to kind of work his way into. Yeah,
Gordon Liu with the 3-sectioned like chain whip thing. Unbelievable. Yeah, really good. That one doesn't get talked about enough.
No, that's definitely in need for re-release. I think there's a few movies that the Lau brothers worked on, most famously Shaolin versus Wu-Tang, that are desperately in need of a proper kind of re-release. And I think the rights for those are a bit tricky because they were outside of the big studios, but they feel like they're of the same sort of level of quality as the big studios. But I want to take things right the way back to the beginning for a second, because there was something really fresh about the way that at a time when everybody, Shaw's included, and Seasonal and Golden Harvest, were all doing that kind of studio shot, sometimes backed by red or like very kind of like single color opening sequence, your title sequence. I loved that Sammo took it outside and kind of went into the kind of bamboo forest. And there's a kind of like pretty extended sequence with Casanova Wong going up against Beardy in a way that they never really do in the movie, and it's not trying to tell the story of the film the way that Lau Kar-wing would like to do these little short. His opening title sequences were often like a condensed version of the movie over the titles, and Jackie was just going more out for like a sort of straight demonstration. This felt quite different. This kind of felt like super stylized, but very, very cool, and kind of seeing the two of them facing off against each other was just a real delight. It's a wonderful way to start the movie, because it's a little while until we get our next big kind of action sequence, so it kind of really sets you up for what's to come. And I love the aesthetic of them working their way and fighting around the kind of bamboo trees. Looks so very cool.
Yeah,
like a variation of the Red Room. Like we talked, there's so many of those Red Room openings. It's, you know, and like when you get so used to that, like when it goes to the Clan of the White Lotus and they're outside, it's almost like it sticks out because you're so used to Kid with the Golden Arm and a million we could mention. You know. Yeah. I liked how I have to say what really sticks out, and it's kind of like it's a standard like martial arts movie. I don't know if you would call it a trope, but just when a guy is about to die, when you have Beardy in that scene, and that was definitely they used that similar. I'm sure this is in 100 kung fu movies, but it's similar in The Master, where that waiter comes and stabs Chen Kun Tai at the opening. that was very similar to that. It was almost like, you know, it was different because it was a beggar, but not, it wasn't a waiter, but man, it had that same vibe of, just the guy, someone being nice and getting close like that. But that scene might have been like, I mean, the finale is tough to beat, but I will say that scene is just, you feel every moment. It just feels like that, like kind of boxer from Chung Tung, that vibe where you just don't know if you're going to die now. Okay, we got a few more minutes. Wait, is he going to die now? You know, and eventually it's like a table that just takes him out over his head. But I just thought that scene was just so gripping because you like him so much. I mean, you're really like, you know, rooting for him, of course. And it's just so shady about how and it's just, I did kind of question why they just had to kill him so much. Like it's not like a missing plot point, and you guys have added, it's not as much about the plot here, but there's just some little tweaks I wish I could kind of like maybe just up it a little bit. Like whenever Casanova Wong found out about his mother dying, I just wish it was a little more like, once you added the master dying, it got the revenge better. It just didn't seem like he was that, like, it didn't have him down by a creek. And not that you need like all it's spoon fed to you, you know, seeing him like, because sometimes they really, you know, they'll have like an image of his mother, I mean, all this stuff, but you don't need it that like, you know, hitting you over the head with it. It's just kind of, and I got some Fearless Hyena vibes from that. And I've said how much I love that. And I know the English dub of that, like Jackie almost overdoes. He's like, Grandpa, like, you know, him screaming that. You don't always need it. Like in the original language of that, it works perfect. I just love when you're on board with there's no question of the revenge and like the pure fury of it. Once you got the master, I just didn't know if I always felt that in Casanova Wong. I didn't feel like the revenge theme, the thread didn't always go through. It turned to more about the Kung Fu.
Kinda, and I think that's maybe partially why they opted not to have Beardy survive until the very, very end, because I think it would have been logistically more difficult to kind of have him performing at the level that Sammo and Casanova were able to do in that last reel, because that last reel is a pretty solid 25 minutes worth of pretty unrelenting action by the time that you kind of get to it. And I think it kind of goes back to that sort of original conceit where, yes, it's about the revenge, but he's not running in going, you killed my master, now you must pay. He's ultimately still trying to stop the plot that he initially heard of. He's trying to ultimately stop the gang from taking over. So it was kind of more righteous. And I think that kind of, I didn't trip up too much over that, but I think this is one of the ones where I wasn't rooting for the villain, but the most of the joy for me in that last act is coming from everything that's happening with Fong Harkon, because he rarely got a chance to shine this well. Like, I love the inexplicable reveal of him having pretended to be old for the entire.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And then they go just pure nuts with him. They just like Sammo was just like, hey, we don't want you just doing Mantis Fist. We're gonna get you fucking flying. We're gonna have you walking on the backs of your hands. Let's just go all out with it. And it works so well.
Leaning at possible angles that would make Michael Jackson jealous. And I think there's like some of the
Smooth Criminal.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
that sort of vibe.
Well, what is on that, I wanted to ask you guys, is this might be a Sammo thing that I have not seen too much. I can't even pinpoint what I would call it. That's what I'm going to ask you. What is this where you have this straight up Kung Fu fight and Lau Kar-Wing goes into a lotus stance and starts walking on his knees, and it's not like really that funny. It's kind of cool, but it's kind of the same vibe when he goes into that lean and goes on his hands. I don't know. I wouldn't call it a comedy beat. It's just I don't know, like an avant-garde kung fu move or something. You know?
Surreal. It gets very surreal at times to me, like when they pull out those moves. Because you just nailed it, actually, Jason, the way you said it. That it's kind of silly, but it's also kind of cool, and it kind of walks this thin line between those two. And don't get me wrong, there are some films, you know, for example. If you remember the ending of Mystery of Chess Boxing, where he breaks his arms and his arms are all flopping all over the place, right? That one is very silly, like to the point where, come on, guys, you know, that's a bit daft. But when they nail it and it's not quite silly and it's kind of cool, I don't know. That seems to be something specific to Kung Fu movies, where they just pull off this kind of perfect balance of kind of silliness and just awesomeness. Yeah, I don't even know what I'd call it other than, it's just weird. But it's
would you say hints of like The Grudge, when she goes down the stairs? There's like a little bit of a horror when he goes into that stance. I felt like I was entering a horror movie a little bit. It was like a reveal. They always like, I don't know, Stephen King's It's always like this reveal moment where something opens up and
Oh yeah, I think Fung Hak On's character in this is definitely leaning towards horror 100% from the reveal to the crazy moves. I think there's a horror aspect, but then I know that Sammo likes dabbling in horror. That's kind of his thing. So I'm not surprised that it gets brought up in this film. But yeah, I don't know. The villain just works so well because, like we mentioned, he does have a disguise on. He goes from being old to young, and there's literally no point in it whatsoever. But it's kind of cool. It's just kind of cool. Yeah.
I guess to hide his ability, because but they didn't make him seem too like, they weren't trying to play him off as like 100-year-old, but I guess it's just like, oh, suddenly I'm 30 or whatever he would be.
And when the other gang members came in to sort of meet him at the beginning, when he sort of like summoned them to the town to help him with this nefarious scheme, they don't seem remotely fazed by the fact, because presumably they've known this guy. Has he always been? So many questions. But I think it's just done because it is literally just a cool idea, and it's a nice kind of way of having this extra element of risk and danger. Like, because it would have been one thing if he'd fought as a really old guy, and it's something that reminds me a little bit in a weird way of what John Carpenter would do years later with Big Trouble in Little China, with Lo Pan's character. Basically, kind of his whole deal is he's wanting to become more immortal, but he goes from this old figure down to this young and much more
great
capable,
call. Great call on that dragon.
And so I think for me, it just felt like a way for them to raise the stakes. Like, he's much more formidable as a younger fighter, and the fact that he's kind of had the discipline to keep himself hidden for this long, and some of the other levels of henchmen that he has in there. I love Yuen Bao's little cameo with a crazy kind of wig and beard. The kind of like the swordsman brothers that he shows up as half of towards the end are very, very cool. And
I got confused then. That was who I was calling Mang Hoi. That's not Mang Hoi?
The other guy might be. Yuen Bao is definitely one of the two. I struggled to place the other guy.
See, I thought Young Bao, he has like a couple little moments. I thought he had one outside too. You saw him for a moment in the earlier
There's a good chance that Yuen Bao was never just doing one thing.
Here's an interesting thing. From watching the commentary, whenever the guy that Sammo Hung is going up against, Yu Sang for they're blindfolded.
No, you might be right actually, because in the credits now that I'm checking, Yuen Bao's just listed as one of Thunder's men, but the two swordsmen are actually, you're right, it's Mang Hoi and Chin Yut Sang.
Well, but of course, why that's interesting is because when Sammo Hung and their partners doing the big like blindfold scene, and then he gets horribly murdered, it sucks. They have him right back, the same actor who just died with a beard on and a sword. It's just so interesting that they didn't grab just some other guy. And I wouldn't have known if on the commentary when Frank Zhang mentioned that. I mean, I would not have known that was that guy. And maybe if I looked closer.
I saw him in places. Maybe he was doubling in for a couple of moves, because I'm sure that I clocked him as one of those two swordsmen, but I could be wrong.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But isn't it also weird that they brought that guy right back? It like put a beard on him. I'm sure that happens in ones we don't even realize.
I'm sure it does.
It's a bit of a Hong Kong staple.
Par for the course.
Yeah. I think that they play pretty fast and loose. Even with direct sequels, they would quite often kind of mix up who is playing different characters, like you would expect in the 36 Chambers that Gordon Liu would have played the same character in all three. And nope. By the time you get to the second one, there's some other rando playing the character that he played in the first one. I think they were just less precious about that sort of stuff, because these movies were so, I mean, now we think of it as being this incredible lineage of movies, but they're also available to us now. At the time, it was like they were going to play at the theater for a little while, then they were gone. So I think even within like scene to scene, I don't think they particularly minded too much. I think it was more if you had the ability, they'd bring people back and just dress them up as something different,
Right.
And
they didn't foresee us three sitting here. I'm saying they didn't foresee us three, like dissecting.
No.
I want to add on to what Shaun said. Like, how do you saying this is your, like right now, like your favorite Kung Fu movie? I'm sure you guys may agree. That has to be top 5 on-screen kicks when Casanova Wong goes over that table.
It's certainly the most debated kick in Kung Fu cinema history. I remember being on Kung Fu community websites decades ago that were asking, is he on a wire? How is he doing it? Is he coming off a trampoline? But you watch that feature, they will tell you he did it all himself. He runs up and he just does that kick. And yes, it's unbelievable how good it is.
I mean, it's incredible. And he says, even shortly after, he don't think he could have done that because he had just come out of the Marines and he was just so into Taekwondo at that moment. His body positions, and now I know they did like 7 or 8 takes, of course, but just the way he pivots midair and then he plants it's incredible. It just seems like there's a little too much time. Like, you know what I mean? Like it seems like it seems like you wouldn't have that much time to do all that before you land, which is why they probably are wondering about The Wire. And I know it's in slow mo.
You mean how long he's like hanging in the air?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess what I'm saying is the nature of someone jumping, which you could do in the air if you're not Michael Jordan, like is like
I was going to mention Jordan because like watching slow motion on Jordan and it looks like he's just running in midair. It's unreal how much like
he's like checking his phone up there. You know, it's like
I think some people are just really gifted. I mean, you can see it. I'm not a big Olympics watcher, but you do see it in the long jump where it seems unreal that people are seeming able to defy gravity for that sort of length of time. And
I was going to say that's a better example because Michael Jordan is vertical, but that's not true. He's always going forward usually, unless he's going straight up.
He was jumping from so far to get in.
Of course,
that
right.
basket.
But yeah, it's not just the height for him; it's just the length of like the stuff he can do across laterally versus vertically. But of course, it's a mix. But man, that is beautiful. I could just watch that all day. I could just have that.
I believe many years ago when I had a Tumblr account, that was one of the first animated GIFs I ever made.
Oh, killer!
Over the table. Yeah, I was very proud of that one.
That is awesome.
It's so good. Yeah, it's an incredible kick. I mean, there's no denying his talent.
I think it's a shining moment. Like, and as much as he was definitely in other movies, and there was other movies when he did great stuff, but I do think this was maybe kind of the closest that he kind of came to his real shining lights, the closest that he comes to being a real leading man. And I think he kind of carries it. He carries the acting stuff. You kind of feel for him after the death of his mother, and he maybe doesn't drop to his knees and scream up at the ceiling, but I pretty much bought him. I think the only thing that I find a little bit unbelievable is that somebody of his physical prowess would be working as a fucking bank teller, but that's by the by.
Yeah. It's like the Bruce Lee. Nature. It's like the abs. I mean, just his physique. It's like, it's
it's like, when did he have time to learn about accounting and kind of banking finance? But no, he's phenomenal in it.
On I think a couple episodes ago we were talking about like box office, you know, and like I never actually thought about that much, but when you're listening to that commentary and you're saying how this wasn't a big hit, and then they say how it was $2.8 million, but you know, and I often when I hear that, like when I would go through, I was doing my Venom series, I was going through and I was like surprised how low Daredevils would be and then how high like Sword Stained with Royal Blood was. That just shocked me. It was like 3 times the box office or something. But I wasn't always doing the conversion. When I would hear 2.8, I thought that meant 2.8 million. I just kind of forgot to like think what it would be in US. So this was actually only 400,000 US. So it didn't even do well at all. And they were talking about how stuff like Duel to the Death wasn't even that, like people like kind of forgot about it. It's kind of like the Western like revival, if you will. And also this has happened with a lot of things. And they actually mentioned Big Trouble in Little China. These movies, you would think that would be in the theater for like 3 months and just like a Jaws, but no, some of these movies really kind of like flopped in the theater. And then it's the VHS and it becomes a cult status, you know? Yeah. So it's sometimes hard to imagine, you know, and I've heard about the culture of it too, how, of course, you guys have heard of how, like, with Come Drink With Me and all that, and Chang-Chi when he had the women is because the men were all at work and the housewives would go to the theater and were watching. So that was their heroes. So it's kind of neat to, like, the box office in America, the box office is like everything when it comes to sequels, when it comes to all these different things, you know, and it's kind of, I don't always apply that to this. And you wonder, oh, okay, when they saw Jackie Chan Drunken Master doing amazingly at the theater, that's why this all happened. It's just kind of shocking that of how amazing it is and it hits all the marks. I can't wrap my head around why that wouldn't be a hit. They said it was only in the theater for 2 weeks or something like that.
But it's the when, man. I think you can I'll bow down to your knowledge of this year particularly, but this is 78, right? And look at how stacked the playing field was that year, particularly for Kung Fu, for martial arts releases. This was kind of coming out at a time when, I mean, list a few off the top of your head. What else was 78, Jason?
Oh my God. Master Killer, 36 Chamber, Shaolin Mantis, Crippled Avengers, Five Deadly Venoms. I mean, I could freestyle rap. It's staggering. It's staggering.
Yeah, and you've got that glorious video, because there's a very strong argument to be made that 1978 was the absolute pinnacle, the peak year for Hong Kong kung fu and for Hong Kong martial arts movies, just in terms of the wealth that came out that year. So yeah, I can imagine that in theaters that were brimming with that much stuff, that it's not everything was going to run and run and run and run, because next week there was something else incredible waiting to like knock it off the screens and take over, right? So I think there was just such a wealth. Now when we look back at it, everything kind of sort of gels a little bit more together, and you kind of start thinking, oh, why? It seems almost unjust that the film wasn't recognized more in its time, but I'm just glad that we still have access to them now, and we're still getting these beautiful new restorations. And I think they're definitely internationally much, much more heralded than they are back in Hong Kong. I think Sammo still carries a lot of weight there, but he's kind of still being celebrated at film festivals and things. But the supporting players, I think you'd be hard pushed to find someone in their 20s or 30s in Hong Kong that would even know who half of these players were. Like, I don't think Fong Har Kon has the legacy that he has internationally there, and that's a real shame. But I think in some ways it's great that these movies have kind of found a second life through home media, really, through people who probably never get a chance to see it on the big screen. I've never seen this movie on the big screen. I don't know if I'll ever get a chance. I think there's certainly been some screenings in and around London, but outside of that in the UK, it's pretty hard to kind of see these movies the way that they were originally intended on the big screen with an audience, you know.
I think you see it with, especially with a lot of people doing this recently, bringing some actors over from Hong Kong, Japan, wherever, over to the West. You know, for example, Yukari Ashima was just here in London, and it's always fascinates me how these people, like, they don't even or barely even know they're famous. Or they don't consider themselves famous, even though to us they're absolute legends. I mean, Angela Mao, perfect example. You know, she runs a Chinese restaurant in New York, and for the longest time, if you went there and tried to speak to her about her career, she wouldn't talk to you about it. She just wouldn't open up and talk to her about it. She had no interest until people started knocking on the door and going, "Hey, we want you for maybe a DVD feature or a Blu-ray feature." And then she started realizing how popular she is. And I think it's so interesting that these people, some of these people, like Fung Har Kon, for example, unfortunately he's passed, but he never knew how many of us three and millions of other people absolutely loved his work.
I know,
and
it's
he
so
never
sad.
got to see that. Isn't that sad?
He was the quintessential Hong Kong villain, really, particularly of the Hong Kong era. He was so good, and I think he was one of the best kind of members, for me, of Sammo's trope in terms of making real despicable villains. He's a real piece of shit in Iron Fisted Monk, maybe the worst in Iron Fisted Monk. He's a real rapey piece of shit in that movie, but he had a real knack for playing villains, but also a real physical prowess. You can see him in the background in so many Jackie Chan movies as well, just kind of there as a staple performer.
Speaking of Angela Mao, he also, his only film he directed had Angela Mao in it. It was Snake Deadly Act. Which is, I think that was his only film he directed. Don't quote me on that, but I think he directed it, and that's an absolute banger film. It's great, and people don't talk about that enough.
Dragon, I wanted to ask you, so this is petered out a bit. I mean, there's a place called Ides Entertainment in Pittsburgh where you could go down and like browse and see Blu-rays still and DVDs and stuff like that of Kung Fu movies. And of course, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, you can go to FYE. And I remember the days we can go into Walmart. I could not believe I was looking at 36 Chamber of Shaolin double pack or whatever. I was just like, wow, blew my mind. But when you went to Hong Kong, this might not have been your guys' mindset because you want to see locales and stuff. Could you like go into a store in any way and find like Kung Fu movies, like Blu-rays of them, or would like the HK IVLs, would they be like in a collectible shop or like a record store?
Yes and no. I think it was a lot easier pre-COVID. So the first time I went there was 2019, and at that point we were actively searching. That was kind of when I first went to Clearwater Bay to kind of try and visit the Shaw studio, and I was actively looking to pick up as much stuff as I could. And there was a chain of like more CD shops, like music stores, that had a kind of fairly small physical media section. And they were doing deals where I think it was 3 movies for $100 Hong Kong dollars. So at that point, the exchange rate was probably like 1 to 10. So it's maybe for about £10 or what, $12, $13 US, you could get like 3 DVDs. But they were all Taiwanese imports in those stores. So they were all like, for anyone who knows the kind of the Region 3 market, the Taiwanese ones were always the kind of gold covers with the same art, and they didn't generally have English on the back the way that the IVL DVDs did in Hong Kong, but they were fairly available. But we found this one incredible store that I can't remember the name of. I think it was maybe called Disc Plus. It was in one of the fancier malls. It was a beautiful, beautiful shop, more what I would think of as being like a boutique shop. But going in there was a real shock because they had, as much as they had the biggest collection of the Taiwanese Shaw's DVDs there, they also had 88 films, and they had Eureka, and they had a bunch of UK imports into there, right? And that was a beautiful, beautiful store. Like, so pretty much spoilt for choice there, and we bought a bunch of stuff. And when we went back again after COVID and after all that sort of stuff died down, so it was maybe 2023 or 2024. I can't remember the last time we were back there. That shop had gone, and there was a lot less. I think even the big HMV had closed. There was a big, massive HMV that had a pretty big Blu-ray section. And then it became much more going to the less well-known malls that are more like not big proper stores when you go into. They're real small, little, almost like what you would think of as like a market stall, but it's indoors. And so there's, instead of having like 10 stores inside the place, you'd have 60 stores, but they're all really small. And there was some places there that there was a couple of physical media stores that we managed to track down, but very little Shaw Brothers stuff. And by that point, very little DVDs even. They had some secondhand, but it was mostly all kind of like imported Blu-rays. And there was a little bit of that, but there were few and far between. I think I can remember like trying to pick Frank Zheng and Arna and Big Mike's kind of brains for where was the best places to go by that point, because it was becoming real slim pickings.
Did they ever mention who the clientele for that would be? Would it be people our age? I mean, I doubt it's like a 20-year-old. You never know. It could be someone's son. Okay.
I didn't really speak to them about who was still buying, but certainly when you were in those stores, it was mostly kind of older cats who were in there browsing, or tourists. So I
wondered if it was aiming towards tourists a bit, but because what I'm trying to get at is it feels like a forgotten era in my mind. Like, you know, when I've heard about Hong Kong, it seems like they're very forward facing. It's not like the nostalgia as much, you know?
No. And I think that they kind of, I noticed that a little bit when I've shown kind of older movies to my Chinese family. The main stumbling block for them is normally the quality of, even with the new beautiful transfers on Blu-ray, it's not like 4K, 8K definition. So they're kind of like, they're a bit less interested. So it takes a little bit more to kind of get them to watch the film, unless there's a real big star. So I think I'm trying to think of things that I showed my mother-in-law, and she loved Moment in Romance with Andy Lau because she remembered seeing that as a little girl. And she really loved Dirty Ho because she'd never seen it before.
Wow.
Just showed them, both my in-laws were staying pretty recently, and we all sat down and watched Blades of the Guardians, and they loved that, but they thought there was too much action, too much fighting in it. It blew my mind, because at one point, like, for anyone who's not seen that movie, this is not a spoiler, but Jet Li has his first action performance in a long time. Like, he's basically come out of retirement to be back in that film. And when Jet Li showed up, they were like, this old guy's really good. And I was like, this old guy's fucking Jet Li. What the fuck? Because there was no connection at all to any of his movies, which was mind-blowing to me, because Jet Li, for me, has been like on the Mount Rushmore of martial arts performers over the year. Jet Li is maybe the one who's most deserving to be there in terms of like his legitimate training and how much of a celebrity he was within the martial arts world before he started acting. You know, he's like the shining light of the Beijing wuxia team, and was traveling internationally and doing demonstrations for Nixon on the White House lawn, and such an incredible legacy that he's kind of had, but completely forgotten to Hong Kong audiences. Didn't even know who he was, and that was real. Like,
interesting.
That's
wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
Would they know Sammo, you think, if you said Sammo Hung?
Maybe.
Okay.
But
of course, they would know Jackie Chan, though. It seems like.
I think so, but not super interested. They see a lot of movies, but a lot of the movies are it's almost the same mindset that Hong Kong cinema had back in the 70s. They're very forgettable. Like, no one has big, massive collections of physical media. They'll see something if something's streaming on TV. So if it's streaming on like one of the channels, they'll maybe sit down and watch a movie.
But
I picture Jackie like doing Colgate commercials or, like toothpaste stuff back in the 90s or something. No?
Oh, well, maybe, but probably more in other places, actually. I think the adverts that he was probably doing were probably more in Japan and Taiwan.
I just know he branched out into singing and stuff, and you didn't see that over here. I thought he was more of a celeb that everyone would know.
But he was. I don't think he was ever. Although he sang, he was never he never got up to the holy grail of being like one of the sort of the canto pop kings. He was never up there. But so I think a lot more weirdly for us, like a lot more people would know Jackie Chung than Jackie Chan over there.
Oh, okay.
Because he was much more well-known singer, or Leon Lai, or certainly Andy Lau. Everybody knows Andy Lau. So Andy Lau's still probably huge in a way that people who managed to transition. And I think Cara Wei is still really well regarded because she's never not worked. So after Shaw's wound down, she just transitioned to start doing stuff for TV. And so she was in multiple TV series as dramatic series over the years. So she's kind of always been a presence on Hong Kong TV screens. And she was a judge recently. They did a show to try and find the next generation of wuxia or martial arts actor. It's real hard because none of the next generation really want to put in the work the way that the 1970s, the Peking Opera School days are long gone. So it's really hard to find actors that want to graft that hard. And increasingly they're still taking them from the rosters of pop stars more, because that's the closest now, the lineage of being in a canto pop band or a K-pop band. Those guys have to work in a little bit of a similar way. They're worked as hard as kung fu actors used to be in the 1970s, right? So they pull a lot from that world also because they have a pretty big fan base. And Cara Wei was a judge on one of these sorts of shows, and she was just constantly berating them you're not working hard enough. None of you, if you're not sore for the next 2 weeks, then it's nothing's any good.
She knows.
She came across as a real, she was the real tough judge. She was the really hard one for them to impress, right?
Okay.
She would be quite nice with them when it came to dramatic performances, but anytime they were doing action stuff, she'd just nah, no good. It was real funny.
I'm sure Lau Kar-leung put her through the same.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very, very different world. But yeah, it's very strange over there. I think they're having a little bit of a sort of second wave over the last couple of years. I mean, for I've been hearing for 2 decades now that Hong Kong cinema's dead and it's never going to get back up to the heights that it did before, which I don't think is entirely accurate. I think Hong Kong's been turning out better and better and better movies over the last sort of 5-10 years, and I think they're kind of getting back to kind of being a pretty big player in kind of action cinema. Mainland China's definitely overtaken them, has a much bigger audience, and so movies that are being made there over the last couple of years are rivaling anything that has come out of Hong Kong in the last little while. But it's still
did you hear the casting news for The Shadow's Edge 2?
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, Chow Yun-fat has just been announced as joining Jackie Chan and a plethora of others in The Shadow's Edge 2, with cool. The Shadow's Edge being genuinely, I think it was my favorite action film of last year. I love that film.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And also Tony Leung Cafe just won, I think he won Best Actor, very well deserved.
Yeah,
at the most recent Hong Kong Film Awards, and he's flying real high just now. He's got a wonderful part in Blades of the Guardians as well. And
who won for action? Do you know?
That I'm not too sure actually.
No, maybe I can look that up.
I can see if we can try and find out. I'd be very curious to know. I know that the previous year Kenji won for Twilight of the Warriors, which also very well deserved. And I think in other casting news, and sticking with Kenji Tanigaki, they've announced that they're doing a remake of, or a reimagining of The Man from Nowhere with Joe Taslim stepping into the lead, which is extremely exciting news. See, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in Hong Kong, in mainland China, and in Japan. And there's a very strange, wonderful meeting of the worlds with the Furious, which will be kind of coming out in the States and hopefully here pretty damn soon, that brings all these worlds together. So we're getting one of the biggest stars from Chinese streaming movies, Xiao Mei, who played, bringing us back to Jet Li, who played Jet Li's son in My Father the Hero many, many years previous. And he's now been riding high in the Fight Against Evil movies. And
he's been making waves. Eye for an Eye, and plenty of them. By the way, The Shadow's Edge won for action. Yeah, this year. So it took it. Although, admittedly, the competition wasn't that tough. It
No.
seems.
No, not for that year, but and it's interesting that most of the great action in that movie. I mean, Jackie's got a pretty great sequence with Tony Lung Cafe, but it's really Tony Lung Cafe's sequence, his big kind of old boy style sequence. It's probably the real highlight of that movie from an action point of view. Yeah, and we'll get to it on the pod because Jason, I think you've not seen The Shadow's Edge so far, have you?
No, I've not.
No.
Jackie Chan, his newer one, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's not really. I think it does it a little bit of a disservice to try and sell it as a Jackie Chan movie because he's in it, but it's not really a Jackie Chan movie. It's kind of much more of an ensemble piece. It's a kind of I wouldn't say it's a remake, and it's not really a sequel, but it's kind of a retelling, an updated retelling of an old Hong Kong movie with Simon Yam called Eye in the Sky.
Okay.
And it kind of explores a lot of the same territory that movie did. And the only returning cast member from the original movie is Tony Lung Cafe, who, spoilers for the old movie, who dies at the end of the old movie. So it's not really a direct sequel, but he's kind of playing an updated version of the type of character he played in Eye in the Sky, but with so much more to do.
I think what it was is right after Shaun saw it, you kind of threw the idea out of us maybe doing it on the pod. So I kind of held off on that one. But I'll tell you, these interventions are definitely working. When I saw I know the people, the players now, my resistance has been lowered and just Furious. I'm just psyched. I'm so psyched for that. That is just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And, Taslim, a lot of mine's coming from, of course, I trust in you guys. It's not about, because there was a lot of noise. There's all these different names floating around. And when I didn't, and it's just like your guys' like curation and guidance. It's just been really nice because I'm coming a lot from the Raid 2 aspect of it because that's what really got me. Like that's kind of sealed the deal. That was like, okay, this is unbelievable, but I'm really excited for what's next. It's cool to kind of be, I love watching all these old ones. It feels so great. And there's so many new ones from back then. Like even when I see, like I love dissecting even this. I mean, we'll go back to talk about, I just love seeing thinking, oh, Golden Harvest, how they do the indoor sets versus Shaw Brothers. I could live in this for 100 years. I love this, but it's nice to know that the future is going to be awesome with all these movies coming out. And, and a lot of it was interesting on this commentary whenever Bobby Samuels and, Frank Jang were talking, they really went into the camera work and how it changed and stuff. And they talked about this old static camera work. And I know we've talked about that a lot. And Bobby Samuels was saying he really loves how the colors look on film and stuff. And that's true too. You have Tarantino and a lot of these people demanding still being on film, just how that pops in that certain way. And as much as I love that, I love how you guys have me branching out. I'm way more open now, which thank you guys for that. So,
it's a pleasure.
It gives us a chance to see something that we've seen a bunch through fresh eyes as well. And I think your takes on, it's always been really fascinating how quickly you've zoned in, even just after kind of one, maybe two watches of the movies that we're bringing as interventions. You really kind of are cutting through an awful lot of the noise of the bullshit around some of these movies and just really zoning in on the things that make them pretty special. So it's been a real treat for us too. So,
cool.
Yes, feel the love.
Yeah, if we can have you watching some brand new martial arts possible classics, wonderful. And if we can fuck you up along the way with I Saw the Devil, then even better. I know.
Even when I hear that title, I just see an Achilles heel being cut. As I'm not joking. As you said that, I saw that one. Man, that really got me a little bit on that. I was kind of in I don't know what it was. Sometimes like you could be having some beers, you could be watching anything. It wouldn't phase you as much. I watched it early in the morning. I just felt really like I know what the word would be. I was just kind of, everything was hitting me like raw nerve, cringy to some of that. And was their effect on that.
They don't get much more brutal than that. I can't think of like another even Asian.
You threw out something that you booked.
I think
there was one.
The Chaser's pretty bleak.
Chaser's pretty bleak.
But there was one you guys said that both of you said, "Oh, we won't do this to Jason." Is something Butterfly or Tomorrow or some? It was like a singular word. Might not have been an action film. But, you said, should we show him the sorrow or something like that? or
the sadness.
the sadness.
I think we should do that. I genuinely think we should.
But both of you are like, oh, so you made me feel there was something beyond the pale. There was something out there.
Just different. I think there's a very different energy. But I mean, you fuck with horror movies, so I think you'd be fine with the sadness. Actually, I think you might. I think you might find it less, maybe psychologically torturous. As I Saw the Devil's pretty in its own head.
Is this more human centipede? This one?
It's more bloody, I guess. And it's it's just like a really unhinged zombie movie where the zombies aren't mindless, so that they can still speak, and they're kind of there's a real twisted kind of I guess it's taking glee in trying to make you wince in a way, and it's not the most kind of like earth shattering movie. I think there's better zombie movies and there's better gore-filled movies, but it's a pretty good time to watch.
Okay,
it's pretty unrelentingly nasty.
It's the only film my wife's walked out of.
Mm-hmm. That's what you said. Yeah, you guys were sparing me at the time. We could put in the reservoir of ones that.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be. I think it would be very fun to do. Because I think also with the sadness, there's a ever so slight kind of comedic element to it, and that at times it's so dark that it's kind of funny.
Like
but
Rob Zombie,
you have to know. Yeah, kind of in a way, yes, but you have to know that you can laugh at that stuff and a lot of people don't realize that. Hey, it's okay to laugh at this stuff.
Right.
That's absolutely appalling, and I think there's levels of that within sadness. Some of it's just like flat out gross, but some of it's like kind of cheeky and kind of funny. But there is like sexual violence in it that people don't love, of course.
I think it's a real response to COVID as well. It's kind of coming off the back of that kind of experience in the world. And, it's also a real interesting kind of production. I mean, we'll get into it. We finally end up doing the sadness. We can dive into it a lot more. But it's a Taiwanese movie, but directed by Taiwanese-born director who was raised predominantly in Canada and then went back to Taiwan to make the movie. And it's really interesting. I always think of it and Project Wolf Hunting in the same sort of breath. Of Project Wolf Hunting, a bit more comic booky, and Project Wolf Hunting is another contender that we should do because that's like Universal Soldier meets Predator meets Under Siege. It's kind of like
so much fun, Jason.
Wow.
You'd love it.
That sounds great.
It's so fun.
Yeah. I always ask you guys on these ones. So for Warriors 2, I think most of us are going to say the finale. Or I think you guys might say the finale, but what is your favorite scene? For some reason, I'm being drawn to the Beardy scene because I think it has such an emotional, just him going out like that. It really made the whole plot make a lot of sense of why they needed this to take them all out. But there's something, the spectacle, the finale is tough to beat. Like you could just show someone that finale.
Yeah, but for me, I think maybe the scene, or definitely on the rewatch, the sequence, because I've seen the end sequence a whole bunch of. Like for a long time, we would just keep the VHS at the end of the tape, but we just kind of watch that last. So I know the last sequence real well, but for me on the rewatch, I think it was the training sequence that I was having the most fun with. From the fake in for they basically, because he initially Beardy won't train Casanova, so there's this great little kind of wee semi-comedic beat where Samo steps up and says, "Okay, if you're not going to train him, I'll train him." And then they do this real thing where he's basically become the worst teacher ever, just as a way of pissing off his master to make him finally relent. But from the time when Beardy does actually agree to take him as a student, I love that kind of progression through the variation that we've seen of the kind of the wooden men, almost where it's instead of the traditional wooden men that we've seen in like Shaolin wooden men or
that was cool
in Canadian bronze men. It's just the Wing Chun dummies, but on this weird sort of wire rig so they can scoot down the room. I loved the whole setup of that. It kind of still felt really fresh. And Shaun already mentioned the dropping of the leaf, which is real cool too. So I think for me, this time around, it was the training sequence.
How about you, Shaun?
Yeah, I think always it's been the training sequence for me, like the extended train, like Dragon was saying, kind of that entire segment of training. But I will admit that this time around, I did pay way more attention to the final fight, more so than I usually did. So I think I found myself really enamored by the finale. And I don't mean like the last 25 minutes. I mean, that's cheating because obviously that's amazing, but more just the Fung Hak on Casanova Wong Samo stuff. And you can even throw in the Dean Sheck stuff because I really like that. So I think that little segment at the end, it may not be better overall than the training sequence, but I definitely paid more attention to it and appreciated it more this time around, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah. Was Sammo hiding his abilities at the beginning of this movie? Not even when he did that fake out to make, Beardy want to train him when he did that scene. Like when he met up with Dean Sheck, it was strange. Sammo didn't seem that good at the beginning. He just didn't seem like that great of a fighter.
Pretty bumbling. And it's very sort of allowing himself to be bullied and ripped off as well.
Yeah.
But why?
I think those little beats are just there for kind of comedy and to kind of, I guess, so you sort of dismiss him really as being potentially a sort of physical threat the way that he is by the time that you kind of get to the last act. And I think probably just playing it for comedy. And because there's the initial kind of sequence where he's basically jumping between different jobs, and we obviously see him at the beginning as a really bad food seller because he's eating all of his own stock all the time, and then moving on to being the guy that cleans up shit and all that stuff. I think is just there for the lulz.
I don't think the US cut has any of that, right? Does it trim all of that out, the American cut?
Oh, good question.
Whatever.
I just watched the Hong Kong, the slightly longer one. But I think you're right. I think a lot of that does fall by the wayside.
I watched the Hong Kong cut, but I watched it dubbed. But in certain scenes, it's switched back to Cantonese. And I was like, oh, these scenes obviously aren't in the US cut. So I imagine if it trimmed a lot.
It's 5 minutes. It's 90 minutes versus 95 for the Hong Kong. So it's 5 full minutes. But you could tell them
a lot.
Yeah, you could tell because there was a lot. It's always like the extension of a scene. Like they'll have the point of the scene, and then there's like they talk a little longer or something like that. And then also, speaking of that dub, it had the option for the dub. Of course, I ran to classic versus the DVD dub. But watching the commentary, or not the commentary, watching the featurette on this, I caught wind of that. I could hear the DVD dub. Boy, did that sound bad on there. That sounded, it made me realize that I'm not all, you caught that, right, Shaun? How like, I've talked before how, original language is amazing. And I love the English dub when it has that classic feel, but it's not just the English dub per se. Because I remember being blown away by Crouching Tiger in the theater, and at home I said, oh, let me try this English dub. It was unbearable. I couldn't even make it 2 minutes, I think it comes down to them being really good actors. Like we've talked about the Godzilla team. We've talked about, I call them the Legendary Weapons team. And I'd call this like the indie team, the ones I hear in a lot of Joseph Quo, the guy with like a lower voice, like, yeah, come over. Like, it's kind of like his voice is really loud. I think they're actually good actors. In a strange way, that guy who I've mentioned a lot on the podcast, Ted, who does often the hero like Kwok Choi or Gordon Liu, he's like one of my favorite actors. I could hear that guy talk all day. I love how, it's the way that guy is like legit. Just his acting comes across in the dub. Yeah. How good it is.
It just goes to show like how much a dub can kind of work for a film because what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, basically some dubbers or whatever we call them genuinely did an amazing job, and to listen to it is an absolute pleasure. And then you get people who dub and it just doesn't work, like the newer Warriors 2 one. And it's just it's a dub, and technically they're the same thing kind of going on, but some just feel so different from the others. And I don't know why that. Or maybe it is because they were better actors, but all those old school dubs, they all sound so much better. Yeah,
I think some of it's maybe a little bit of nostalgia. I really struggle with English dubs of anything that's current or anything that's kind of come out fairly recently, and I notice it a lot with games. I really, at this point, it's almost. I'm struggling to try and think of a game that I've played in the last decade that we've played with an English dub on it, because they're just shockingly bad. The same with anime as well. I really struggle with anime with English dubs, and they're really well recorded, and the people are definitely talented, but there's just something about it that really grates.
So you look for on a game, do you have ones would be in Japanese or in different language?
Pretty much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And even games that the characters are sort of presented as Western, like I've just been playing through the new Resident Evil game, and I've played all of that in Japanese, and I dipped into the English for like 5 seconds, and it was like, oh, this is just awful.
So it'll be a cutscene. It'll have like the wording below it and be in original language. on the game, right?
But you can just have English subs, but just all the dialogue across the board will be in Japanese.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
That's generally our sort of preference for kind of playing through games, or it doesn't necessarily need to be Japanese. Like there's a French game called Expedition 33 that we've been playing through, and we've been playing that in French, and it's so much more. It kind of engage with it a lot more when it's in its original language. Anime is definitely the worst for it. English dubs in anime are just fucking painful. But that's the whole thing. There's as many people. I know an awful lot of people hate subtitles. I'm so used to subtitles I don't even notice that I'm reading. Like I think I'm so used to it that it doesn't even feel like I'm doing two things at the same time. I think you're capable. Your brain's entirely capable of reading text and seeing what's on screen at the same time. It just maybe.
Well, I am one of those people that has subtitles on for everything now. Like even
English stuff.
I just leave them on the bottom and just let them go. And
I do that too. Netflix movies too a lot. You could tell what they do though is they try to be how it would be like on an American show, the dubbers. Mm-hmm. So you'd be watching something and they really do the timing well in the mouth and be like, hey honey, can you bring this over here? And you could tell they're trying to do like how it's just something about it just doesn't jive. Maybe also on the old ones. Yeah. It's like, they're not in a way, they're not trying to be like on those old dubs. They're not trying to sell it like it's so real. Like it's almost like they're in on knowing it. They present it in kind of like a tongue in cheek way a lot of times. You know? Especially on those narrations and stuff, in the Ying dynasty, he was taught and then it's like,
Yeah, they're just throwing it out. I think that's some of the thing that makes it great. And they were doing so many in such a short period of time. And those guys were all like smoking and drinking their way through everything they were doing. And I don't think they took it too seriously. So I think, I can handle it on kind of old Shaw Brothers movies. Sometimes I'll dip into those just for the nostalgia of it. But by the time that you're getting up to the point of, particularly you notice it a lot on the Jackie movies when he started doing his own English dubs. I can sort of handle those a little bit more because you can tell it's his voice and stuff. Like I was thinking of Drunken Master 2, which I've been diving into, and I've been switching back and forth between the English dub on Drunken Master 2 and then the original. And I still generally kind of favor the original if I can, the kind of original language. But
Oh, does that have the option of both English dubs on that? So it has the Jackie voice one and the
I haven't
later
noticed
one?
The other one. I haven't noticed the non-Jackie version on the new Arrow release. I'll check and see if it's there. It might well be there too. Because
you've got test discs?
Yeah.
For the new Arrow? Okay, cool.
Because there's 3 different cuts of the movie, so I'll have to check and see what options are available depending on which cut you select. Because I was just went into the kind of longer edit of the movie first, and that's the only one that I started working through. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I've only heard of 2 cuts.
You know what? Which one stuck out for me was Ip Man. I for some reason started on the English dub it was like jarring. It just was so bad. And I went to Mandarin, and Mandarin felt a little bit off. In my mind, I'm used to going to Mandarin because of Shaw Brothers movies, And then when I went to Cantonese, it synced in and it was perfect. Everything was amazing. I loved it. But boy, if I had hung with that English dub, I don't know if I would have liked it. Almost, it was like
you talk about the first one. There's bits of English once you get to like parts 3 and 4, and once you start getting the cameos, and I think
Mike Tyson.
I was thinking of Tyson and thinking of Scott Adkins. Scott Adkins is one of his most despicable characters that he's played in part 4. He's real great, but I'm not too sure if they recorded like an alternate. I don't know if the Scott Adkins dialogue's ever been recorded in Chinese for that movie. I think it was kind of real integral.
Well, that would make sense, right? I just on that first one, it just was like a generic, like what we're talking about, voice.
Yeah.
And you guys done this a million times. When it's in Cantonese though, and you do the Mandarin, that has a very different vibe too. Like
definitely.
Because I'm so used to that Mandarin. When it goes to the Cantonese, it's like I wouldn't even know how to describe that exactly. It's almost it's way more fast and way more like intonation in the voice. It's not
for Cantonese.
Cantonese, a lot more fast paced, and I would only say comedic, but it's like it just feels like a street level, like versus like a ni hao ma, like it's more of like a relaxed vibe with the Mandarin,
Yeah. Cool. Should we bring it home, gentlemen? We've stepped into a couple of tangents, but I think any last thoughts about Warriors 2? Anything we've not got in there?
I loved it.
I do love it. And I will say this, just one added thing is I think this is a very good gateway film for anyone who is interested in getting into the genre. Yes, some of the comedy's a little quirky, but I think that allows someone to experience that kind of comedy and kind of get used to it before you get into the real bad Dean Sheck stuff in other films. But I don't know. I just think it's a great gateway film. I think it's well worth, if you have anyone that's interested in starting in the genre, give them this one and have them give it a go.
Yeah,
absolutely. I loved it. Yeah. It was so good.
And there's, I mean, I think for people who've not yet picked up on physical media, there's a couple of great options. That Eureka did a phenomenal double bill alongside The Prodigal Son here in the UK, which I'm sure you can probably still pick up a copy of if you're in the States from Diabolic. And Arrow also put out them both as individuals. So if you didn't want to commit to both, even though they do sit alongside each other remarkably well as Samu's two kind of Wing Chun movies, and maybe we'll get to the Prodigal Son. I'm sure we'll get to The Prodigal Son at some point.
Oh, we will.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm riotously good time, and kind of really one that I hope you've enjoyed revisiting with us. I've been the Fanatical Dragon, and I've been joined, of course, by Jason from Martial Arts Theatre 3000 and Shaun from Food for Thought. We all do have YouTube channels, which I'm sure you can find if you are that way inclined. But otherwise, we'll be back here again next month with another absolute banger. So please do join us all for that, and leave us a review as well if you're that way inclined. It'd be nice. We would like reading review or a comment. We like checking out the comments wherever you do listen to your podcasts. But that is it, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us again, and we will see you again next month.
Awesome.
Later.